So to begin this morning, I'd like to spend about 2 minutes on Bible study. Because as you read your Bible, you cannot read the Bible with our mentality about society. You have to be able to appreciate the way they lived in their day. In our world today, we live in a very individualistic society, where all around us is the thinking that every individual is ultimately important. Everything starts with me. That's the center of our world. Everything has to be done my way. That was the farthest thinking that would be possible in the days of the Scriptures, because their society was based on honor and shame. Honor and shame. And the only thing that existed was family. And without family, you were nothing. That's why Jesus, when Jesus' mother and brother came to him and they couldn't get to him because of the crowd, somebody said, "Your mother and your brothers are here to see you." And Jesus said, "Whoever hears my word and follows it is as close to me as my mother and brother." The people there would have gasped. That is unthinkable to say that. So that's the setting of today's gospel. Now, with that foundation, when the younger son asked for his share of the property, he was saying to his father, "I wish you were dead." That was unthinkable. That very statement would have shamed him. Then the father divided the property. That was also unthinkable, because the older son always got at least 2/3 of the estate, because it was his responsibility to care for the remaining members of the family after the father died. So the father divided the property unevenly. Then the son leaves. With that in mind, the son is shunned. I don't know if you're familiar with shunning, but some religious communities, if a person doesn't follow the rules, they're shunned. But not only the son was shunned, but the father would have been shunned too, because of the shameful way he acted. Then the son comes to his senses and starts to return home. Now remember, the communities were very small. Many times they had a wall around the community for protection. So the father spotted the son coming, and he ran to him. No adult man in that culture would ever run. Why? Because he'd have to pick up his robes and show his bare legs. That again was unthinkable. But the father ran to protect the son, because when the son would come into the city, people would have stoned him because he was not acceptable. So the father ran to him, put his own cloak around him to protect the son. Maybe that gives a little bit of the setting for your meditation on that particular story. So if you look at the story with our 6-week message series about stones, obviously this story talks about entitlement. And so that's our theme today. To think about what we are entitled to. Because most of us think that we deserve everything we have. But again, think about it. Everything we have is a gift. And if you want to know where you are growing spiritually, how much do you really believe that what you have received is a gift? Because we think we deserve everything. But everything is a gift. Everything is God's grace. Our good fortune. Think about the families we were born into. What a blessing that is and was. Did we have a choice? No. Everything is unmerited. Think about your gifts and your talents. We all have some. Where did that come from? It's a gift. We choose nothing, and therefore we can claim nothing. But so often we think about our privileges and our talents as something that we have achieved, and it must be used only for ourselves. Everything is a gift, a free. I often hear people say, well, I worked for that. I deserve that. Probably true. But where did the desire come from for us to do that? That's the gift. And that's what we're thinking about today. How are we gifted, and how do we use the gifts that we do not deserve? In what way do we feel we are entitled? We live in a society of conditional love, that if you don't deserve it, you shouldn't get it. We live in a society where we are very cautious about accepting one another. Everybody has to prove themselves before we'll accept them. And our justice is based on vengeance. That's the logic of the world, and contrast that with the logic of Jesus. That fairness is only achieved when we get retribution. Think about our criminal justice system. When we send people to jail, there is very little process to rehabilitate them. We just want to punish them. So again, thinking about our entitlement, I have to call, excuse me, I have to call your attention to the lead article of our bulletin this week, written by Skylar Humphrey. Skylar, by the way, would you stand so that we all can see? This is Skylar Humphrey. She's our intern now in child and youth ministry, and she wrote this article. And my main ideas come from her, from that article. She's going to graduate from Alverno in June, and I'm going to try to talk her into being a member of our staff. Yeah, wonderful. But she talks about that article, in that article, about what we want, what we need, and what we have. What we want, what we need, and what we have. Because it all centers around me, not anybody else. And we have to take that mentality and try to twist it around so that we can realize that we are gifted, as I already said. The world doesn't revolve around me. Everything does not have to go my way. And think about the arguments that we get into, family disputes, family disagreements. Isn't it because somebody said it's got to be my way? We are owed nothing because it's all a gift from God. And once we take on that mentality, everything changes. And how do we do that? Number one, it's gratitude. To start, as I said several times already, to realize that we're gifted. And we give thanks for those gifts. And then the humility to understand that the world doesn't revolve around me, that we are not individuals, that we are part of a family. The parable Jesus told was because the Pharisees and the scribes were objecting to Jesus because he hung around with the sinners. And that threatened them. So now remember, the Pharisees and scribes were not all bad people. Jesus himself could have been a Pharisee, but some of them were self-centered. So the Pharisees didn't want Jesus influencing them because he might challenge their purity. What about us? We're gathered here because we want Jesus on the altar. And that's good. But Jesus came to tell us that the presence of God is also out on the street, in the people that are not here, and to understand that challenge. I want to close with two stories because it puts, I think, first of all, the first story puts the parable in a different light. This is by Valerie Schultz, the parable of the prodigal daughter. There was a dark time in my life when one of my daughters, when I dreaded answering a call from an unknown number on my phone. This was in America Magazine, September of 2019. Dread is too mild a word. actually, because I was deeply afraid that some unwelcome call was going to be notification that my daughter was dead. A practicing alcoholic, she was out there at the world's mercy, her behavior rash and risky. There was nothing I could do about it. When the fall call finally came, it was less bad news. She was not dead, but in jail. Among other charges, she had assaulted a police officer. I suspect she survived that encounter with the law because she was a white girl rather than a person of color, a thought that fills me both with gratitude and shame. Her daughter is now sober, and she tells the story with her daughter's permission. Mom is now playing the role of the relieved parent, trying to bridge the prodigal with her skeptical sisters. Their reaction to her recovery has caught me off guard, although it makes sense. The kids were always doing the right thing, comparatively speaking. It was as though this one were used to being the one who messed up all the time, who caused their parents all the grief, and now they do not know what to make of her. As much as she is present as a new, improved, self-aware person to them, and as much as she wants them to trust her sobriety and integrity and honesty, they do not yet anyway, which she in turn does not understand. Why are they so judgmental? Why do they brush her aside so dismissively? Why are they holding on to their expectation that she might return to her past prodigal ways? Valerie's daughters have always been close. They have different personalities, but they have always supported each other, a steadfast squad of blood sisters. Now there's turmoil among them as this changing family dynamic rocks everyone in place. Do not ever let anyone say that sobriety is easy on a family. The return of the prodigal can spark consuming fires. And my second little story is similar. Daughter left home, became an alcoholic. Finally, the mother got a call that the daughter was in jail. She went down and picked her up. And of course, the ride home was silent. The next morning at breakfast, the mother gave the daughter a present, wrapped nicely. The daughter opened it up. It was a stone. And the daughter said, "Cute, Mom. What does this mean?" Mom said, "Read the card." The card said, "This stone is 200 million years old. That's how long it will take for me to give up on you." So we invite you now again to bring up your stones. You know how to pick them up. Think about what you need to think about to realize we're entitled to nothing. Everything is a gift, and we return it to God, that we might come to our senses